this next game, I promise we won't get into that at all. I did watch the press conference afterward, and great win for Illinois in this one, 87-75 coming into Columbus. And, this team played hard. Terrence Shannon Jr. Had his struggles like people have been talking about. But overall, I mean, he scored 20 plus points. He hit 3 3-pointers. I mean, he was getting into his groove a little bit more in this one. And, like you guys are talking about, the mask, he's a phenomenal player for this Fighting Illini team. And at the end of the day, Ohio State, they didn't look like they were struggling as much in this one. And, they had much more offense there. But plain and simple, Illinois, just a really, really good basketball team and a really good offensive team who was able to come in there and score nearly 90 points. And, 75 points for Ohio State should be enough to win you the game. But like I said, when the other teams comes in and they're hitting shots and they're just playing efficient basketball, it is what it is. Joey, what were your thoughts on the Ohio State-Illinois game?
Yeah, I mean, million thoughts. But the overarching theme, I think, for Ohio State is at the beginning of the year, they were, an upper echelon elite 3-point shooting team. They're not anymore. At the beginning of the year, they had arguably the best backcourt in the Big Ten and one of the best backcourts in the country when you include, Jamison Battle in there with Bruce Thorne and Roddy Gale. Now those guys are not playing it at the same level. Jamison Battle had a solid game. Roddy Gale finally looked a little healthier and had a good game. Bruce was okay. Didn't really play much in the first half because of foul trouble. But and the last thing is their defense is just gone. I just truly don't know what happened. I watched them all preseason. I went to a ton of practices, the early games in the season. Coach Holt, he was not ready to crown them as a phenomenal defensive team, but he kept telling me how they've improved, they've bought in, they play hard, and those all might still be true because I do think they play hard, but something is just like a piece of the puzzle is just gone. There were games where they were playing soft, like they played soft against Nebraska. One thing that my coaches at Ohio State did was they did not throw around the word soft. Like if we were being soft, then we knew that, we were being soft. So I don't use soft lightly, but they were soft against Nebraska and they were soft against Northwestern. For as poorly as they played offensively against Northwestern and as poorly of a rebounding team as Northwestern is, because they go small a lot, and even when they're not small, they're still kind of small. And Ohio State is a pretty darn good offensive rebounding team. To only have a handful of offensive rebounds in that game is just sad. I mean, I was sitting there in the front row with all of the boosters and head of the NIL collective for Ohio State, and to put on a performance in front of the guys that are signing your checks is not very fun either. But man, this game, I'll positively spin it, I guess, in Illinois' sake and say they are back to the team that everyone saw at the beginning of the year. Terrence Shannon had, his get right sort of moment down the stretch in the second half. Being from Chicago and having a million friends that went to Illinois, everyone is very excited about this team. I think they're as fun to watch as any team in the entire Big Ten, and they don't even have a point guard like we talked about earlier. Damask is ridiculous. Terrence Shannon Jr., if he played all year, he'd be a first-team All-American. Coleman Hawkins does everything. Luke Goody's my favorite player in the country. And he didn't even do anything. Brad Underwood's got a really, really good team. He has really good teams almost every year. It's just going to be a question of how well they do in the tournament, how well they adjust to things in the tournament, how well they adjust in important games. Can they win important games without a point guard? But this team is as dangerous as any team in the Big Ten in my eyes come March. I do think Ohio State maybe caught them on a bad night, but Ohio State also not playing great basketball at the same time. JR, I agree that 75 points is enough to win games in the Big Ten. It should be. But man, Ohio State might make a couple buckets, but they just can't get that stop. And I don't know what is happening in Columbus. There is elements of a free fall. It is hilarious that the only team that I wouldn't switch places with right now is Michigan. And that's sure it's saying a lot because Ohio State, if you watch them play, it's crazy that this is the same team that beat Alabama by 13 and beat Santa Clara by 30 the next night. Very similar story to Michigan. Beginning of the year, everyone's like, holy cow, this might be the second best team in the Big Ten. And then you fast forward 5-6 games later, and you'd think the sky is falling. The only positive that I can say is that it's in there somewhere, I think, for the Buckeyes. I have to be positive because that's all I know how to do. Everything that they want is right in front of them. If they go on a good stretch, like it's not impossible to be 10-10 in the conference, and that probably gets you into the NCAA tournament. But the team that I've seen the last 5 games doesn't look like they can go 10-10 in the conference. But it's in there somewhere. I definitely trust the staff. I mean, I've played for the staff. I've had success under the staff. And I trust the players. I mean, Bruce Thornton, Roddy Gale, it's in there somewhere. And I just want it so bad for Jamison Battle on a personal note, because the conversations that we've had are all about, I came to Ohio State to make the NCAA tournament. And it just, I just feel for the kid because he made the move. He left Minnesota to come to Ohio State to play in March and play in meaningful games in March. And if he doesn't get a shot at it, that's just awful. So, I mean, I could go on and on about Ohio State. I mean, listen to Drive the Lane and you'll hear everything that I have to say. But not a fun time. But who knows? Basketball is weird. College basketball is really weird. Things can change at the drop of the hat. Choosing to be positive about it, but like, man, if you've watched the last few games, I don't know how you think that the season can turn around, but I sure hope it does.
Oh, I mean, that's why we love college sports, right? You think, oh, there's no way anything like this could happen, but it's the emotion and it's the drive and the passion of the players and everything else, the coaching that comes into it as well, where it's like you see something and you're like, there's no way anything could happen here. But at the end of the day, something does happen and it gets you excited and you start believing in your team again, even when it seemed like there was no way to have belief. I mean, I've been on this podcast, like 4 episodes in a row now, sitting here saying, I don't know where Ohio State's going to go from here. But at the end of the day, like, I look at this team, I don't think it's a lack of skill. I don't think it's a lack of talent. Right now, I see some guys on the court at certain points in time, they look like they kind of lose confidence at times, which I've been there. Stuff happens on the court, stuff happens when you're playing out there and you lose some confidence and then things get away from you. But the good news is that there's a new game, there's a new opportunity every single time you step out on that court, and we'll see what happens with Ohio State. Ant, do you have any thoughts on this game or just Ohio State in general or Illinois? They're moving forward. What are your thoughts?
Honestly, watching that game, I felt that against 85-90% of the teams in the Big Ten, I think Ohio State finds a way to get that close at the end. I feel that every time Ohio State made a run, they got down like they just couldn't get past like 9 or 10.
Yeah.
And then Illinois would just get to 16, 17, almost like right away.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't like this grinded out and they got to 6, back up to 16 over like 3 or 4 minutes. They would get back up to 16 in like 2 or 3 possessions.
Right.
It was extremely quick. It was like shotgun. Nope, not happening. And I'm sitting here like, you get it to 9 or 10, you like the next one to get a 6-point run, right? Next one to go +6. If that's Illinois, it's back up to 16. If that's Ohio State, it's a 3 or 4 point game, right? That's the little difference. And I feel that Illinois just did not let Ohio State get breathing room. It's almost like the closer the game got, the more locked in Illinois became. And that's the difference between a team who is going to be a top 4 seed in the NCAA tournament and a team who is fighting to get back on the bubble. There was two very different mindsets where Illinois was being an absolute killer in this game, where they would turn up when they needed to. while staying under control, but they would really, really turn up. Are they playing Mahaffey a lot at the 5? No,
they did down the stretch. I mean, against Illinois when Coleman Hawkins is the opposing 5, I think you can. They don't. In any other game, they don't. Truthfully, I mean, they just don't.
gotcha.
I think that's a wrinkle that they need to throw in there. I love Mahaffey's been the best player in the last 5 games. He was making plays at the end of the game at the 5. Got to try something new at this point. I mean, they've had Zed and Felix out there at the same time, but they rarely have neither of them out there unless Devin Royal is in there. But yeah, when he was out there, the game was over already. Right, it's a 10+ point game, but it was an interesting style that they were playing, and I wouldn't be surprised if you see more of it.
Yeah, and in this one of the biggest issues, and it's kind of become an issue over the last few games, was Ohio State's lack of ability to score down low by the bigs. I don't know what's happened to Zed Key this season. I don't know if he isn't pushing guys around as much because he's gotten slimmer, which, good for him. You can definitely tell he's been in the weight room and working hard in there, but I think he's had to adjust his game a little bit because he's not quite as big and I don't want to say as strong, but he's just not able to push people around as much.
Yeah. I was talking to Mark Titus about this. I was talking with Mark Titus on his podcast. This was like during like exhibition time, and we were like bringing up how like Zed Key's lost so much weight. I was like, I didn't even recognize who he was when I was watching him in I think they're playing Dayton or somebody.
Yeah.
I'm like watching this game and I'm like, yo, who is that? I'm like looking through the roster, like, who is that dude?
In person, it's even crazier. I mean, it's unreal.
Man, it's unreal. I'm like, yo, who is that, bro? Do you have a number on like how much weight he lost? Had to be like 20. It looks, yeah. So I was like, I don't know. If he had a jumper, I wouldn't mind it as much. But he's like I don't know, like how good is Jared Sullinger if he's 200 pounds, 6'7"?
Well, I think what I couldn't agree more. I was talking about this with another well-respected basketball mind at the Northwestern game. There is an element of losing weight, which obviously that's awesome. Way to go, Zed. Like, that's great. Like, you should try and lose weight. But if it turns you into a basketball player that you're not comfortable being, right, and you lose your game, right, like a Caleb Wesson, if Caleb Wesson loses 15 more pounds, his game is drastically different. The one thing that I will back Zed up with is he is doing whatever he wants out there still. He is getting deep post-ups. He is getting fouled on deep post-ups like a ton last game. He was getting fouled a ton last game. He just can't finish. It's almost like him losing all that weight, he lost his touch. Like, that's what it seems like to me. Because at the rim, he's incredible. He dunks everything. He's quicker to off the floor, catching lobs, finishing above the rim. All that is great. It's when he is 4 feet, 5 feet, 6 feet out, middle of the paint, left-handed hook shot, right-handed hook shot, whether it's off the backboard or in the middle of the lane. This is the same guy that scored 20 of 10 against Mark Williams and Duke 2 years ago, right? Like he was the reason
angle merchant.
Right. Exactly, right? I mean, he like, I'm not comparing him to Zach Edey, but Zach Edey he doesn't just dunk the ball. He makes these hook shots from 8 feet away. Like, they are not easy shots, but Zed is getting the position and he has the same shots. He led the team in scoring last year until he got hurt. He's just not finishing. I don't know what it is. It's not at the rim. At the rim, he's fine. It's like he's lost his touch. That's what it seems like to me, because he's still able to get the deep post position and he's still physical on defense. But it's just bizarre. So bizarre. Because Ohio State has zero post presence. I mean, zero.
Yeah. I do like Felix with his on the defensive end, right?
Yeah.
He's a great rim
But
protector.
you're not going to give him the rock on the block and say, "Yo, go get us 2 points."
Right.
Yeah, I feel you there.
It's just tough. Like
he's almost like Cliff a little bit of Cliff Amore.
Absolutely, but yet less athletic. So
yeah.
But he is. Cliff Alexander's a great. I think that's a great comparison because, well, first of all, Chicago guy that I saw play in high school a million times.
Amore.
And you're saying Omarui or Amore?
Yeah.
Yes, I agree with that too. I think they're all three. It's so funny. I'm thinking Cliff Alexander because I just watched a Curry high school basketball game, but
but it made sense. He is less athletic.
But less athletic than both those guys. But yeah, it's there's very similar paths of those two guys where everybody in Big Ten circles expected them to be all Big Ten caliber players, especially for Cliff. Maybe not as much for Zed. And maybe it's because the teams just aren't very relevant, but they're just a shell of what they were on better teams. It's very interesting. Both those guys. Cliff Alexander. Why am I thinking you're saying Cliff Alexander?
It's all good. I love his
Cliff Alexander. All he did was dunk, so it's fair.
His commitment video was so funny.
Oh my god! Especially for me, like all my Illinois buddies were like crying. I'm like, that's amazing. Like, thank you for doing that. That's amazing.
I put it on TikTok. It has like 600,000 views or something stupid.
It's the best, and you can, and that's so great because I was just gonna say every year you could just post it again, and it's better every single year.
So I put his video stitched exactly with a video from like an Illinois apartment that was packed with Illinois kids reacting to it. I put that out there, bro.
Unreal.
So good.
So good. Oh,
it was so good, man.
So it's funny story about that.
Sorry, Shep.
My buddy and AU teammate, close friend, Jalen Brunson, who's killing on the Knicks. Very fun to watch him. Going to be named an All-Star tomorrow. He was down to Villanova in Illinois, and it was the year after Cliff did that. And we definitely had a few conversations like, not should he, but what if he did the exact same thing? Because Illinois for the longest time could not get the number one player in the state, Mr. Basketball, Gatorade Player of the Year type guys like Jahlil Okafor, Cliff Alexander, Tyler Ulis. The list goes on and on and on. Now, obviously, they're doing a great job of doing that. But if back-to-back years Jalen hit him with I'm going to be going to Villanova, that would have been just ridiculous. Poor Illinois.
Max is mad at me. He says I'm an Edie homer. Why people call me a homer when I break something down that's correct, but they don't like it. Like they get mad at me for explaining the rules.
Thanks for listening to the Big Ten Huddle. Please do like and subscribe. We appreciate that. If this was your first time listening, we are the Big Ten Huddle. We cover all things Big Ten football and basketball. We have a long episode every Sunday, Tuesday, and Wednesday night, all at 9 o'clock. So come in, check us out, get in the chat, let us know what you're thinking. We would love to have you join us and learn more about the Big Ten.